So martial arts school owners, are you looking after your brand new students the best you possibly could? Or are you just throwing them over the wall? So again, what we mustn't do is rely on the student being hardcore, disciplined, determined from day one. Okay, so you should of course have pride in your students becoming more and more disciplined and determined, and obviously only the select few achieving black belt and so on. But on the flip side, we've also got to try and do our best to look after students as well as possible during the early days of their journey. Now, what lots of students do is, or what lots of school owners do is, they'll enroll the student and then they'll throw them over the wall and sort of hope that they stay around. Now, that's definitely bad practice. I've just scribbled a few things down on here, so if I constantly look down on there, it's just to make sure that I'm covering the things here for you. But remember this now, school owners, you've really got two main jobs. Learn how to attract and enroll a student. That's your first job. And number two, learn to look after that student and keep hold of them as long as possible, ideally forever. So again, number one is to learn to attract and enroll a student. And number two, learn how to keep hold of them for as long as possible. Everything else, is secondary really. Those are your two main drivers. Those are your two high value tasks you need to be concentrating on. So I'm sure I've covered this in the book, but if you haven't invested in a copy, please do so. How to Build a Highly Profitable Martial Arts School. Obviously available on Amazon. I don't know, $12.99, $13.99, whatever it is. I'm positive that you will find a lot of value in that. And obviously if you bring in some of the things, it will help your school develop. So do not just throw your new students over the wall. So once you've hopefully received the initial investment, bad terminology is enrollment fee. Even worse terminology is admin fee or setup fee, anything like that. Anything with the word fee or terms and conditions, or price sheet or price list, it's bad terminology. So we've got to make sure that we're trying to use the best terminology possible for your martial arts school. But let's get back onto the main topic. What lots of people do is when they've had their enrolled student, like I said, £100, £150 enrollment, initial investment, they'll then just throw them over the wall and kind of hope that they stay around. They might have a junior black belt watching over them at the front, or maybe, if you're BJJ, something like that, a brown belt or a purple belt, or maybe a blue belt watching over them at the front, which again is a good tick, but we need to make sure that we're really, holding the hand. I used to, and still do say it a lot to the team really, we must be treating them like eggs, okay, very delicately. So if a new member enrolls on a Saturday, upon that Saturday then really, yourself or one of your qualified instructors, or should I say the instructors you feel confident to obviously speak to parents and obviously represent you as best that they can. I'm not talking about technical ability here. They should be booking in a 2-week progress check, for the 4-week progress check, and also scheduling things behind the scenes as well. So as part of your enrolment process, they should have a welcome call, they should have a welcome letter, a welcome pack, not just a welcome email, okay, because it's a little bit of a cop-out that. So a welcome call, welcome letter, welcome pack, fantastic. But the 2 weeks, 4 weeks, go a little bit further if you want, 6-week check, 8-week check, to make sure they're settling in properly. Because when I start to dig deeper into school owners' statistics, the conversation often goes like this with school owners. Yeah, when we can get them in, they normally stay around quite a long time. They love our lessons, and we don't have a problem with retention. However, and again, I mentioned this in the book, the statistics don't lie. So however many inquiries you're getting in, how many does that lead into first lesson visits? How many does that lead into second lesson visits? How many then enroll from that? Then from your enrollment, what's your net enrollment each and every month, which should always be a positive number if you're growing. If your net enrollment is 0, so you're enrolling 10 members and you're losing 10 members a month, or enrolling 8, losing 8, enrolling 12, losing 12, you're just constantly on that hamster wheel. You've got a net enrollment of 0, which means your school isn't growing. Now, the classes might look full, but it's a revolving door. They're coming in through the front door, staying 3, 4, 5, 6 months, then leaving through the back door. That's not how to run a sustainable martial arts school. So we must treat them like eggs. and make sure that students are staying with us as long as possible because of the benefits are available on that black belt journey, on living a lifelong journey of the martial arts. So first of all, welcome call definitely on the onboarding process, orientation process. 2-week check, 4-week check, 6-week check, 8-week check if you wish. Calls in after the welcome call, maybe a month later. You're always trying to touch base every week or 2 weeks to check that everything's okay. Another good step as well is, regardless of what style that you teach, so again, any major style, judo, jiu-jitsu, karate, taekwondo, BJJ, whatever it is, kung fu, try your best to bring in a little stepping stone belt testing / grading on week 3 or week 4, something like that. Just something small so they can recognise some sort of progress moving forward. So if it was a junior student, say for instance now, say they're only 5 or 6 years old, imagine if they received an extra tab on their belt after week 2 or week 3, which reinforced that they're doing a good job. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be an intense grading. The instructor would do it one-on-one with the parents watching as well. And it would just be a simple 10, 12, maybe 15 minutes max. Can they bow on and off the mats properly? Can they tell us why respect is important? Can they do, and again, for you, it might be like the basic stance, the basic kick, the basic block, just something small. It is not a super intense Enter the Dragon style grading experience or anything like that, or best of the best. It is just something to make sure that they're moving in the right direction. Because if we can reinforce that they're moving further forward and that they're progressing, that will help retention. What else have I got around on here as well? Yeah, don't throw them over the wall. Treat them like eggs. Have a clear onboarding process. I've touched on that. 2-week, 4-week, 6-week, 8-week. Parent meetings. So with that, you've got to think to yourself, you're not a seasonal, recreational style type club. You're not. There's nothing wrong with these. Football, rugby, swimming, netball, scouts. That's not you. You're a martial artist delivering a martial art which has so many things that those other seasonal recreational sports don't have. So if you can catch up with parents, again, this should be staged well during the 2-week check, during the 4-week check, during the 6-week check to try and iron out any creases, then it's only going to serve you better. Let's just think about this. If it's cost you £500 to enrol that new member, again, if you're not tracking your marketing or your return on investment or a number of leads you get and how much and so on, it's quite hard for you to determine how much each new member costs. But if it costs you £500, surely then you want to make sure that you're spending just as much to try and keep them within your system. So never be stepping over pounds to pick up pennies. And it's a common thing that with school owners. I'm not saying it's you, but lots of school owners do that. Progress folder meetings as well. I've mentioned the special first initial grading / belt testing, but never underestimate that people buy from people. People don't buy from companies, they buy from people. So your school likely to be maybe 150, 200 students, 250, around 200 marks, something like that. You probably know most of you, well, ideally every single one of your students, unless you're a massive 600 school plus. You should ideally know most of the parents' names as well, even grandparents if they bring them down. It's all about building rapport. Do they like you? Do they like Sensei Dervish? Do they like Master Smith? Anything, okay? Do they like your team? Or do they just go there, do the stuff and then leave and nobody actually interacts or anything like that? So never underestimate the importance of rapport. So only a quick video, but I want all school owners, again, if you're one of the mentees watching this, you could always do more to look after your students. All right, thinking about, I've covered this before as well, guestology experience. What's that like? As soon as you get out of the car, what's that journey like to your school? What's your outside of your school looking like? What's the inside like? How do all the team members treat them? Is there only you that really cares about the other students, and the other members of the team are only there, get paid by the hour and then leave, and they're not really bothered, not held accountable for, retention? So there's so much to it. So make sure you're looking after your students and understand how much it's cost you to enrol a student. So as soon as they pay you that initial investment, again, for argument's sake, I'm going to call it £100. If it's only cost you £100 to get that student through the door, which I very much doubt it's going to cost more than that, then already it's self-liquidating, which is fantastic. But it's more than likely going to cost you £200, £300, £400. So therefore you need to make sure they're staying with you for as long as possible to offset your marketing, but more importantly, for them to benefit on the martial arts journey that you've obviously benefited for the last 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, and you need to get across that to the parents as well. So a quick video there. Make sure you and your team, again, in your team meetings, you're understanding each and every one of those members. Yes, of course, he's paying you each and every month, but they're actually a person that needs to be looked after. So I know when you're looking on your profit and loss and your stats and so on, it just boils down to black and white numbers, but get to know them, build the rapport, look after them and help them through that journey. Otherwise, I remember one of my great mentors saying this to me, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, maybe even longer now. He said most martial arts school owners will be condemned and shut down if they were, primary schools or secondary schools. Because if you had somebody coming in at year 1 or reception year 1, and year 6 was the black belt graduation, and 99% of them have dropped out before getting to year 6, that school will be shut down. So therefore, why do martial arts not look after their students as well? So just try and have that mindset. I must look after the students. Of course, I've got to enrol new students in, but I must look after my bubble to make sure that my school grows and to make sure that I can have an impact on the community and to make sure that my school is the go-to number one for excellent, outstanding martial arts tuition, and that everybody in the area knows that the team, your team, is fantastic and they actually care about students. So good luck. Keep taking steps further forward. And again, doesn't bother me, I think we get about £3 for every one of these books sold, so it's definitely not for book sales. Invest in a copy of that, How to Build a Highly Profitable Martial Arts School. It should be on Amazon, okay? And there will inevitably be lots of information in there that even if you bring in 1 point a week, your school will be in a much better place in a year's time. But obviously for serious school owners, that if you're watching this so far in, you realise that there's a lot to learn and a lot to implement, and you know that your school could be doing far better than it actually is with just a couple of tweaks here and there by somebody who knows what to do. So if you're serious and if you want to work with Sensei in the Room in the Martial Arts School Mastery Programme, then get in touch, okay? Good luck. Keep taking steps further forward. All the best.